everyone, my name is Payanna and welcome to my book club. Yeah, this video is starting off pretty badly because I'm sitting on the floor on the cold, hard tiles of my floor and not on the cushion I normally sit on because my cat Shadow has just vomited all over it. So thank you for that. Being a cat owner is a never-ending source of joy. Anyway, over a year ago I made a video about the first book in the Oksa Pollock series. Now, Oksa Pollock is a French YA fantasy series. In France, it is very much regarded as the French Harry Potter, and 30-year-old me in 2019 felt kind of bad because I'd never read this. So I did. I'll link the video I made in the description. So to give you a quick recap, Oksa is a 13-year-old girl who's originally from France, but who moved to London with her parents and her best friend Gus as family, and they moved there to open a restaurant. And they both go to a French-speaking school in London. Okay. One day, Oksa finds out that she has magical powers. She can create fire, she can levitate, and she has no idea why. Her parents and her family then find out about this. They have a family meeting and they explain to her that they are actually from a magical land called Edifia, and Oksa is to be the future queen of this magical land. At school, she has a lot of issues with her maths teacher, Orphan McGraw, who really doesn't like her, and it turns out is also someone from their original magical land of Edifia, and he is trying to abduct Oksa. And the reason he's trying to abduct her is she is the only way they can go back to their kingdom. They are locked out, as you were, and she's the only way they can go back there. So she is incredibly valuable for them and also for him. So he tries to abduct her, and he's also her maths teacher. Yeah, I don't know. I was quite shocked by how bad the first book was. I was really surprised. I was really hoping for something that was as good as at least Harry Potter, or as exciting as, yeah, just as fun and imaginative as Harry Potter. It is nowhere near as good as that. I had a lot of issues with it. First of all, with the plot, it's unclear whether Orphan McGraw is trying to abduct Oksa or whether he's actually trying to kill her, because he tries to do both, or does things that could result in both. It's not entirely clear. Oksa's family are just the stupidest people. Their motto in this book, like, it felt like their motto was what could possibly go wrong, because that is how they face everything. They don't understand that things can go badly and people can have negative intentions, starting with Orphan McGraw, the math teacher, when they find out that he's trying to abduct Oksa and that he means to do her harm. He is not a nice man. They know that he's killed at least 2 people. He is a murderer. So when you find out that one of your children's teachers is a dangerous murderer who is trying to harm her, ideally you try and get them away from them. But they do the opposite. They just send the kids back to school, because what could possibly go wrong? Oksa's grandmother, Dragomira, has a big role. She is the exiled queen of Edifia, and she is also, she's supposed to be this like wonderful wise character. At the end of the novel, this novel ends with her being summoned by Orphan McGraw, and he tells her that he's got something really important to tell her and she must come over to his house. And she goes, like, even though he's the bad guy, even though he is obviously trying to draw her into a trap, she just goes and doesn't tell anyone. And then Oksa goes along and doesn't tell anyone either, because, she doesn't even know how to use her powers yet. And it all ends up with Dragomira's bodyguard, Abakum, comes and kills Orphan McGraw. That's how it ends. In front of the children, I have to add. yeah, it's a very, very weird novel, but I think my biggest problem of all with it is that Oksa doesn't actually do anything in the whole novel. She just exists to be worshipped as the new queen of Adifia. That is her entire purpose. She doesn't, like, do anything heroic. She's not particularly smart. Doesn't really understand anything better than everyone else. She doesn't stand out in any way at all, other than that she exists within the context of the Pollock Clan. Now, when I refer to the Pollock Clan, what I'm referring to is Oksa's immediate family, their allies, and all their friends, like all the people who are in on the Adifia Magical Kingdom thing. And there are quite a lot of them, so buckle up for this. The only thing I liked about the first novel, there was this one character called Tugdual. He's the goth character, and he only had like 2 or 3 scenes, I think, but I liked his vibe. Like, I liked the way he spoke and like the way he expressed himself. So he was the only thing I really took from the first novel. I wasn't too harsh on it because it was a first novel, right? It's written by 2 friends, Cendrine Wolf and Anne Plichota, and you know, I was like, okay, it felt like reading a first draft, but to inexperienced writers, like, first novels, sometimes things can go wrong and mistakes get made. I can forgive a certain number of things. So for the second book, I was hoping that they would have at least learned how to construct a decent plot, how to construct decent characters, how to make Oksa into an interesting character, and maybe make her do something that would justify the fact that the entire series is named after her. And, you know, just be exciting, be logical, just make her family more intelligent. I don't know, give us a reason to like these people. I was, again, immensely disappointed. So, normally, when I'm writing a review, this is what it looks like. This is my review for, what's this, Match by Ali Condi. It's half a page, and then at the bottom there we've got Thunderhead by Neil Schusterman. I don't really write an actual script, I just write bullet points, plot points, stuff that I want to talk about because I think it's important. These are my notes for the second book of Oksa Pollock. These are my notes. There are 10 pages, all jam-packed with notes, as you can see. I don't know how long this is going to take, but yeah. So let's do this. This is book 2 in the Oksa Pollock series by Anne Plichota and Cendrine Wolf. Now, the book starts with Gus, Oksa's best friend. He gets sucked into a mirror. They're at school, they're at their French-speaking secondary school in London, and he hears this kind of moaning or crying, and he goes to try and work out what it is. It seems to be coming from a painting in the maths classroom, so the classroom Orson McGraw used to work in. And there's this, like, woman in the painting, and it's all blurry and weird, and Gus gets sucked into the painting. So I'll give the book credit where it's due. The intrigue does start quite quickly, like first chapter, straight in. Okay, so then we get a scene with Oksa where she's looking for him, and she can't find him, so she goes to see Zoe. Now, Zoe did appear in book 1. She was Orson McGraw's daughter, and her only contribution to book 1 was that she offered Oksa a poisoned bar of soap for her birthday, with the intention of killing her, presumably, although it's not clear. Like, when I say it's not clear what Orson McGraw's intentions were in the first book. Anyway, Oksa didn't use the bar of soap, her mother used it, her mother got poisoned, her mother is still in a life and death situation at this moment in the book because of Zoe's actions. Now, I thought in book 1 that Zoe knew that the soap was poisoned when she gave it to Oksa, but having read book 2, I am not sure whether or not she actually knew what she was doing at the time, so like I said, it's all a bit unclear. And anyway, we have this brief paragraph here where it says that Zoe, after the death of Orphan McGraw, is now living with the Pollock family. So she's gone from being one of their mortal enemies to being Oksa's best friend. Fine. On the next page, so Zoe and Oksa go back to the grown-ups and say, we can't find Gus. And Oksa wonders, she says, maybe we should call the police. To which point Abakum, her grandmother's bodyguard, says, no, absolutely not, we're not calling the police. Why? At this stage, they have no idea what's happened to Gus. They do not know what's happened to him. He might have just decided to go for a walk. He might have just thought, my best friend has got magical powers, and so have my parents, but not me, because I was adopted, and I'm a muggle. Let's go with Harry Potter terminology, because I don't know what to call him. I watched a man die, a few months ago, and now our mortal enemy is living with us. I need a break. I'm going for a walk. This kind of thing is a major problem in both of these novels, is that Oksa's family, they just know things, right? They just know things. They have no way of knowing stuff, or they know stuff and it's not clear how they know, but they just do. So Gus has gone missing. Nobody saw what happened to him. Nobody knows where he was, but they automatically know it has something to do with magic. How? So they have Gus's phone and they look inside his phone to see if they can work out what happened to him. And there's a picture, like a blurry picture of the painting on it. And Zoe recognises the person in the painting as being her grandmother, Reminiscence, who is Orphan McGraw's twin sister. So Orphan McGraw is not her father, but her great uncle, I think. I'm not good at, family stuff. So, yeah, okay. And then Dragomira starts yelling, oh my god, he was sucked into the painting. At this point I want to ask, did they already know that this painting was in Orphan McGraw's classroom and that it may be dangerous? If so, why didn't anyone do anything about it? Like so many things in this novel, it remains completely unclear, and before someone says, oh, it might be something to do with translating, I read this in the original French, so this is as is. Chapter 2 is Gus inside the painting, and oh my god, the only way I can describe this is a poor man's version of Alice in Wonderland. It is painful. So he starts off wobbling on the edge of the painting, and then he realises that he's gone inside the painting and falls down into a void. He goes through a mist, he ends up in a forest, and there's just pages and pages of him being confused. And eventually, there's a bit about him reminiscing about Orphan McGraw and how, he is still, even though he's dead, he's still there to cause havoc. Yeah. It's just this massive, great big wall of text that goes on for ages, and it's painful. There's no, it's kind of interspersed with Gus going, oh my god, and wow, and where am I? Then he comes across a creature, which still gives me nightmares. It's described as a kind of root that comes out of the ground with the face of a squirrel crossed with a little girl with freckles. There's an image for you to try and conjure up. Then he sees a bunch of black butterflies, big black butterflies, and then a raven comes to see him and tells him a load of just incomprehensible stuff. He talks about this thing called the Heart Seeker, which lives inside the painting, and how Gus has been drawn inside the painting. and only Gus can annul the evil that has taken over the painting, and Gus is like, what? And me as a reader was like, what? And I even read this chapter, this is chapter 3, I read it to my boyfriend to see if, like, he thought it was good or what he thought of it, and he just looked at me and went, why are you reading this shit? Like, what are you reading? So Gus asks the Raven what he needs to do. The Raven doesn't really give him a clear answer, he just keeps on spouting drivel, and then he goes away. Gus begs him to come back. The Raven comes back and gives him a riddle. Okay. The only thing we find out here is that Gus wasn't the person that was supposed to be drawn inside the painting. It was supposed to be Oksa. Okay, and apparently the fact that Gus is there is a very bad thing. So, yeah. So there's an evil that's taken over the painting. Okay. Chapter 4 is... it starts with Dragomira saying that Gus has been stuck inside the painting. Like, how do you know? How do you know at this point? They don't know. They have no way of knowing. But, okay. Then there's a whole page of just them being really stupid. Like, there's no other way to describe this. They kind of go back and forth about how did they get stuck inside the painting and how is reminiscence in there. So they actually do describe eventually what these paintings are actually for. They're used in Edithia as a way to punish criminals. So this is their equivalent of prison. So Edithia is an incredibly peaceful land, like there's never any war and there's no crime and everyone's just a bunch of naive Care Bears, because, yeah. But when someone does commit a crime, they create these paintings that are specifically catered for them, so they're magic paintings, and they put a drop of the person's blood inside the painting, so the painting knows who it has to suck in, that it knows the person's DNA, and whilst they're inside it, they have to go through a series of trials in order to better themselves. So it's like, you've been a naughty person, now you've got to learn how to be good. That is literally how it's explained. Like, I felt like this is a book for, like, 12-year-olds. I felt like I was reading something for a 6-year-old, just the condescending in the language that's used. There's a great long bit here about the equity and harmony of their land and how mankind is not always as good as they would like it to be and people do naughty things. Yeah, so they send them inside paintings. So this painting was originally made for Orson McGraw. My question is when and by whom? Because when they left Edithia, like, they fled after Orson McGraw and his father set off this thing they refer to as the Grand Chaos, which is essentially a coup, basically. And they fled in a hurry or not so much in a hurry, depending on who you ask, because Dragomira seems to have had time to gather her entire menagerie and take that with her. Abakum or Leomido, her brother, got to take their entire apothecary, like a bunch of plants and stuff. They have a lot of stuff, basically, that they had time to smuggle out with them. So I don't know if they had to leave in that much of a hurry. How long in advance did they know that Orson McGraw was evil in their definition of evil? Like, not a very nice person. And that they created this painting for him, because it seems to take a lot of time. Like, when we go further into the description of what's actually inside this painting, it would appear that it's quite a complicated thing to create. So when was it made and who and why and where and what? Get used to not having answers. So then they start saying that the magic in the painting must be corrupted because the painting can only sustain one person at a time, so you can't have two people inside the painting. So, given that reminiscence was already in there, it shouldn't have been able to suck Gus in as well. So, chapter 5, they ask the magical creatures what happened to Gus and what's going on with the painting. And the magical creatures know a lot more about what's going on than the actual humans do. Now, I actually liked the magical animals in book 1. I thought they were quite fun, but they don't have names, these animals. Like, they have species names, but they don't have actual names, like personal names. It would be like if you were to read Harry Potter and, like, the dragon, Hagrid's dragon in book 1 wasn't called Norbert, it was just called Dragon. Or the hippogriff wasn't called Buckbeak, it was just called Hippogriff. Or Dobby was just called Howself. All of these animals can talk, by the way, and they do have creatures who are like house elves. They're called foldango in French. I don't even want to imagine how that was translated. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, the language that they create in this is painful. But yeah. So I'm going to call them house elves. And I'm actually going to give them names because it is... I think it hurts that they don't have personal names. Because, you know, giving your animal a personal name implies that someone cares for them, that these creatures are loved. And they're with them all the time, and they talk to them, and they interact with them. Like, they should have names. So these two house elves, they are one male and one female. I'm going to call them Barry and Lila, because I think they deserve to have names. So I think it's Barry in this one who says that, yes, Gus has been taken inside the painting. And then they ask this kind of chicken creature who knows everything about everything. And I'm going to call her Susie, because she doesn't have a name either. So Susie says, yes, the magic in the painting has been corrupted. And they start going on about how it's possible that reminiscence is in the painting instead of Orson McGraw. Okay, now then they do something else that is so annoying. They just start conjuring up possibilities. Like, they don't have any evidence. They don't know. But they're just trying to imagine scenarios. And this goes on for pages and pages. So what they come up with, like, the painting recognised the person's DNA. And reminiscence is Orson McGraw's twin sister. So they're like, oh, well, that's probably it then. The painting got them confused because they're twins and they've got the same DNA. Now, I'm going to give Plichota and Wolf the benefit of the doubt on this one because I did look this up. And it is possible for identical twins with the same DNA, to be of different genders. It's due to a thing called Turner's syndrome. It's extremely rare, but it does happen. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Reminiscence and Orson have got the same DNA, and the painting got confused, and she got sucked into the painting instead of him. Okay. And then they start wondering how Gus got sucked into the painting. And they think it's because he must have had Oksa's hair on her, because again, they seem to know that Oksa, like the painting, was trying to get Oksa, because it's Orson McGraw, and he was trying to get hold of it, and he'd corrupted the painting, so he's trying to grab Oksa. So Gus had one of her hairs on him, so again, the painting recognised that as being Oksa's DNA. Hair is packed full of DNA, so okay, why not? My question is, how flawed is your magic that it can't tell the difference between two siblings and just the hair on someone's arm? I think you might need to do something about that. There might be a problem, but okay. So in chapter 6, Oksa and her dad, Pavel, they break into the school to go and get the painting. And this chapter is really boring. Like, it is so boring. It is 5 pages long. And, like, yeah, they go to the school, they break in, they get the painting, they leave. That's it. It could have been summed up with, like, the Pollock Clan waiting for them to come back, and then Pavel comes in and says, oh, we got the painting. Here it is. That's it. That's all it needed. There is a kind of almost tense moment where the Guardian hears them and kind of comes up to investigate, but they turn the lights off with their magic, and then they hang from the ceiling, so when he kind of looks around with his torch, he can't see them. It would have been way more interesting had he seen them. because then, you know, Plichota and Wolf would have had to write themselves out of that scenario. Like, what do you do if, you know, the Guardian sees them? But he doesn't see them, he just goes away. So, yeah, I also don't understand why Oksa goes with him, because she's so, like, important to them. She's their key, essentially, to get back into their homeland. And we've, like, in the past school year, her maths teacher was trying to abduct/kill her. And you don't know who else is out there trying to get hold of her. So ideally you'd want to keep her safe. But no, they just let her go out and, yeah. So in Chapter 7, the Pollock family do what they always do whenever there's a crisis. They have a Pollock Clan gathering. So everyone comes... I'm not going to go through all the characters, because some of them, I'm not entirely sure what their purpose is, other than to big up Oksa. But Tugdual comes back. Okay. And Tugdual is very much the voice of reason throughout this entire novel. He is an island of sanity in the midst of an ocean of madness. I really, really appreciate that, but it gets weird, and I'll get into that. So they start talking about how they're at war with their enemies, so they know about Ultha McGraw, they don't know who else is out there, as I said. Tugdual makes some really good points. He says that they can't talk about war with any degree of authority because they come from a land where war just wasn't a thing. They have no experience of war, and he's absolutely right. And of course, they listen to him. Well, they don't. Dragomira condescends to him. She turns to his grandparents and says, "Oh, I thought he was supposed to be, you know, less..." Now, he fills her in by using the term morbid. And I would quibble with the use of that word as regards to this character, because, yeah, he's a goth, fine. But, like, the word morbid means someone who talks about unpleasant subjects, usually death, you know, very dark things. There is no point in this entire novel where Tugdual actually talks about death or deadly diseases or whatever. His whole, like, attitude can't even be described as pessimistic. He is being realistic here. He is being completely realistic. Yeah, he makes also some points about Abakum, where they talk about how he dispatched Orphan McGraw at the end of book 1. And that leads to a weird kind of moment of reflection from Oksa, where she says, oh yeah, it was really difficult for him and he has to live with that for the rest of his life and blah, blah, blah. He doesn't show... Like, Abakum doesn't show any sign of regretting what he did or that he's got a job living with, like, killing a man, but okay. And just the last bit, I love this, because as I said, the Pollock Clan motto is, what could possibly go wrong? It doesn't actually say that in the novels, but their whole attitude just comes across that way. Tugdual, at the end of this chapter, says, we should really always try and expect the worst possible outcome, which puts him just completely at the other end of the spectrum from the Pollock Clan, despite the fact he is himself part of it. Now, what I find hard to understand about this is how, as a reader, I don't know how I'm supposed to react to this, is the fact that Tugdual is so realistic and has such a good grasp on what's going on. Are we supposed to look up to him and think, yes, he actually understands the situation? Which isn't the case for the rest of the Pollock Clan. Like, as I said before, they are just like a bunch of naive Care Bears who do not understand what conflict is, that people can have negative intentions, and just the whole bit about them describing why their painting justice system thing works. Like, they are so naive. They are so childish. They are honestly like children who don't yet understand that, you know, things don't always go as planned and things don't always turn out right. And like, they're like are we supposed to like them for that? I don't understand. I don't, because they, honestly, they do not like Tugdual. They do. Ascending to him, telling him to shut up. We'll get to that. So in chapter 8, they start discussing who should go into the painting to save Gus. Oksa absolutely wants to go. They tell her she can't go. She goes off into her room to sulk and sets off a massive, great big storm. Now, Oksa's, like, mood, I guess, setting off the weather did happen in book 1. No one ever thought maybe we should do something about that. Maybe we should tell her how to control it, because what if she sets off a hurricane? What if she sets off a tornado? This is dangerous. But no, what could possibly go wrong? So the storm is so violent, it breaks one of the windows in her room and she cuts her hand on a piece of glass. Then she becomes unconscious for 4 hours. And then when she wakes up, when she wakes up, she asks what happened. Tugdual says that the storm she conjured up or created or whatever she did, because it doesn't actually say how she creates these storms, they just happen whenever she's angry. And so he tells her that the storm destroyed the entire neighborhood. Now, whether he's saying this as an exaggeration or whether that's actually what happened remains unclear. And obviously Oksa is devastated by this news. She's worried, given that she herself got injured on a piece of glass. She thinks that maybe some children might have had shards of glass going in their eyes, or maybe an elderly person might have been blown over by the wind. Car crashes, buildings being knocked over, infrastructural damage, people's businesses. She doesn't care. She actually does not care what happens. She doesn't even ask. Like, this person, Oksa Pollock, is gonna be the queen of a queendom, of a magic queendom. She sets off a horrific storm and does not even ask if any damage was caused. She does not care. I would be worried. No one in the Pollock clan comments on the storm. Like, once again, they're not like, maybe we should teach her how to control this. Nope. No one cares either. And then they tell her that while she was unconscious, they decided that she can, in fact, go into the painting to save Gus. That they've had this really long discussion and they've come to this conclusion. So what was said in that discussion, we never find out. So there are pages and pages and pages of pointless, meaningless conversation, and the only conversation that actually has any kind of pivotal role in the actual plot of this novel is left out. That's it. To me, it just seems like lazy writing. At the end of this, one of the characters, a character called Mercedica, I don't know, she makes an interesting point, because in the first novel, I really felt like Oksa was being objectified by her family. Like, she was the key to getting back to their home, and that's all she was. I mean, that kind of was what she was in the first novel, because she didn't do anything. But Mercedica makes the point that, but there are, like, bad people who want to abduct Oksa because they only see her as the key to getting back to Adifia, which is also kind of the way that they see her. Like, yeah, basically what you're saying is you're no better than your enemies. Which is interesting coming from Mercedica. Remember that. So now we get to chapter 9. And chapter 9 is... I have mixed feelings about this. Again, it kind of reflects upon what I said about Tugdual. Like, are we supposed to side with him or side with the Pollock clan? Is he supposed to instill some kind of sense into them? I don't know, I don't understand. But so this chapter's entirely from Pavel's point of view, so Oksa's dad. And it's dark. Like, So at this point here, Oksa's mum, Marie, is still in a hospital bed, so she's in a bed in their apartment, and she's still like in a life and death situation due to Zoe's poisoned bar of soap. And Pavel has this entire reflection about, like, he remembers his dad and how he was taken away by the KGB because he was Russian or whatever. But then he starts talking about Oksa and how he wishes he could just take her and Marie and get them out of the Pollock clan, essentially. Just run away and not have them involved in all these kind of schemes and dangers. And I completely understand him. I completely side with him, because I have a 12-year-old. If I discover tomorrow that she is the key to getting my weird family, I don't really have a weird family. Well, I do, some of it. But if she was the key to getting back into our magical kingdom, then would you, and like, people are trying to kill her, and it's dangerous, and Oksa's 13, she is 13 years old, and she already has to deal with all this. She didn't ask for any of it, and neither did Pavel. He just wants a normal life, an easygoing, simple, danger-free life. Like, he wants the biggest danger to be, might trip over the pavement or something, and I completely understand him. And there's a point here where he talks about how the Pollock clan are a bunch of delusional old people. So not only do we have Tugdual, who's like in conflict with the Pollock clan, we also have Pavel, who is Dragomira's son, Oksa's dad. He's going against this. He's, you know, I completely respect him for that. And I also feel sorry for him, because he actually says, like, what choice does he have? He doesn't have a choice. He is essentially being kept prisoner by the Pollock clan, because if Marie leaves, she is certainly going to die, because they're the only ones who know how to fix her. And they're probably still going to carry on hunting down Oksa, as much as, like, their enemies are trying to hunt her down. It's a really dark chapter, so it would appear Miss Sadika is inadvertently right, and the Pollock clan, at this point, would appear are not much better than their enemies. Which is an interesting way for things to go. Nothing becomes of this, by the way. Like, I got excited, but nothing comes of this, apart from a very weird bit at the end, but yeah, we'll get to that. Chapter 10 is all about Tugdual, which normally should have made me happy, but the thing is, whenever Tugdual's in the same space as Oksa, she goes insane about him. Like, he is very much the love interest of this novel. So he's 16 years old, he's a goth, and she's completely besotted with him, but for all the wrong reasons. I need to point out, now I know this is a trope of YA, that the female protagonist is completely obsessed with the love interest for no other reason than they're the love interest. Okay, I have actually like highlighted here all the bits that are describing Tugdual's physique, like his physical appearance. All of this is just descriptions of him. It is painful. So there's a lot about his dark and mysterious eyes. A lot about his eyes. Like, his eyes are very bright blue, and his hair also, like, it's always falling kind of in front of his face. There's a lot about that, and how he looks so mysterious, and it's painful. So she asks him a bunch of questions, because she wants to know who he really is. I feel sorry for Tugdual, because Oksa got told about his backstory in book 1 by, I think it was Abakum, despite the fact it was not Abakum's story to tell. Like, Oksa's family have no respect for other people's lives. Like, they just, yeah, I'm going to tell you what happened to him. So he's had a really kind of dark past. When he found out about his magical powers, because his family didn't tell him about them either, they didn't figure it out like Oksa's family did with her, and he went off and started a cult at 13. I quibbled with that in book 1. I thought it was a bit weird, but okay. And then Abakum tells this story to Oksa, like, with all the disrespect you could possibly ask for. So she wants to know who he really is, why, like, he's Tugdual, he's a member of the Pollock Clan, like, who do you think he is? Like, what? And then they overhear a conversation in the kitchen between Dragomira and Abakum, I think, where they're talking about that there may be a spy among them. And, ooh. So, chapter 11, they have a conversation about this spy and the fact that there may be a traitor among them. So Dragomira completely dismisses the notion that there should be a traitor among them, that the traitor might be one of them, because God forbid there be any kind of intrigue. So the traitor's not among them, according to Dragomira. But there is a man who stands outside their window and looks at them. So they are perfectly aware of this spy being there, like, worst spy in the world, like, he's just standing right under their window, like, they can see him, they know he's there. They also know that it's someone who knows about magic, because Abakum tried to sneak up on him disguised as a shadow, and he saw him and ran away, and he wasn't scared by Oksa's storm, so he's obviously someone who knows about magic. Who the hell he is, we never find out in this book, so that's it. So then there's a great big conversation about who the spy might be. They think it might be Mortimer, Zoe's not brother, it turns out, but Orphan's actual son, because family ties are, like, weird in this book. They change all the time. Tugdual says something, and then he gets told off by Dragomira because he's scaring Oksa, when, once again, he's being realistic by saying we need to imagine the worst possible scenario. What could go wrong if there's a spy that knows what we're doing? Like, he's completely right, once again, but Dragomira just tells him to shut up. This spy is incredibly bold. Like, he knows how stupid these people are. He knows they're not going to try and run away. He knows they're not going to try and evade him. Oh my god, like, I don't know. This is so painful. Tugdual also asks an interesting question about what happens when they go into the painting. Because the people who actually get to go into the painting to save Gus, remember him back from the beginning? The people who are going into the painting are Oksa, Tugdual, Abakum, Liamido, Pavel, and Pierre, Gus's dad, Lila, the other house elf, the female one, Lila, and Susie, the chicken creature. They're the ones who get to go into the painting. And Tugdual asks at this point, what happens if their enemies get hold of the painting? And what happens, what happens if they get hold of the painting whilst they're still inside it? And what happens if they destroy the painting while they're still inside it? Do they get, obviously what he's trying to say here is they need a plan. They need, at no point is a plan discussed about what they're going to do. Because we don't even know who made this painting. The person who made the painting probably knows what's inside it. You could talk to them and discuss a plan. Like, how do you do it? How has the painting been corrupted? The magical creatures know everything. Ask them. But no one discusses a plan at any point. They just go in. So chapter 12, they finally go inside the painting. Everyone gets bigged up. That happens a lot in this novel. Everyone gets bigged up, Oksa gets bigged up. Pavel gets bigged up. I think Abakum does as well. Liamido. Not Tugdual, interestingly. And then there's a great big long scene where they're all saying goodbye to each other, and it goes on for ages. And then they finally get inside the painting. So, they go through pretty much the same stuff that Gus goes through. So they're in this kind of mist. And then they find out that Tugdual can see in the dark. I'm not quite sure how this helps at this point, because they're in this kind of fog. So night vision doesn't help when you're in a fog. But okay, he can see in the dark. So he leads them out of the fog into the forest. Now, I want to point out, at this point, this is the last time Tugdual talks until I say he speaks again. Like, he is not going to say anything until I say he does. Just bear that in mind. Chapter 13, and weird root squirrel little girl creature is back. There was a character I really didn't want to see again. Then there's the big butterfly turns up and Oksa wants to kill it. Because she's a lovely person. So a lot is made in her family about how sacred life is, and they don't eat animals in Adifia. They only eat plants, presumably the ones who can't talk, because some of them do. I don't know how they... I don't know. But yeah, she wants to kill a butterfly for no reason, and it even says she would squish it without any pity. The future queen of a land that supposedly respects all life, though I would quibble with that later on in this novel, but yeah, okay. I would also quibble with Oksa being the new queen, but she's 13 years old, time will tell. Oksa's attitude in this whole chapter is just, it's not good. Like, she obviously she's, like, confused, like, she doesn't know where she is, and the creatures, like, don't, obviously, like, it seems the creatures don't understand that people from the exterior are gonna come into their world, which would or wouldn't make sense depending on how you look at it. I'm not gonna go into that, like, there's so much to talk about in this. But she just takes the piss out of these creatures. Like, she completely takes the piss out of them. She is so mean. Like, whenever they say anything, she's just like, oh, well, I'm not from around here, so I don't know, do I? Okay. So, obviously they're there to find Gus, so they all go running off in different directions to try and find Gus. I can't remember which character starts freaking out, saying, oh my god, we're going to get lost in the forest, and then they're told that actually the forest will always lead them to where they want to go. Which isn't possible, because if a prisoner is, like, taken into this painting, he will want to get out of the painting. And the forest is not going to lead him to the exit. So, I don't get this. Like, how is a prisoner supposed to know where he wants to go inside the painting? I find this very confusing. But anyway, Oksa runs off. She ends up with Abakum. This scene just freaks me out. Like, she goes running off with Abakum. Abakum transforms himself into a hare for some reason. I don't know why. It doesn't specify why, but he does. He turns into a hare. Okay. So Oksa, right, is a 13-year-old girl. Abakum is a 70-plus-year-old man who, okay, is now in hare form, but still 70-year-old man. Oksa thinks he is cute in hare form. She gathers him up in her arms and starts cuddling him against her chest. A 13-year-old girl is cuddling a 70-plus-year-old man against her chest. Am I the only one who has a problem with this? All the plants and animals in the painting know who Oksa is. They know she is the next queen of Adifia, and they all worship her. Because, like I say, she just exists to be worshipped. She still hasn't done anything. Anything of any significance, anyway. Interestingly, when Gus entered the painting, he got a lecture by the Raven about how the evil had taken over the painting. There are these things called maleficents. I don't know what they are. You never will either. Yeah. But interestingly, Oksa and, like, her party don't get any kind of warning about the evils inside the painting. I think she gets, like, a random warning later on, but she's the only one who gets it, and not the rest of the group. So, again, like, information is randomly shared around. There's no conversation about it. Chapter 14. They find Gus and Reminiscence. Yeah, great. And then they turn around and realise that Pavel is not with them. So, chapter 15, Pavel is alone walking through the forest. I would hesitate to say that he's lost, but can you get lost in a forest that always takes you where you want to go? Even if that's not possible within the context of this, but okay, whatever. So he's this chapter is painful. So he's walking along and he gets this terrible pain on his back. Then he has a vision. So he's frustrated and angry to have been separated from Oksa. He has a vision of her in amongst the trees where she's sitting on a log, I think, with a hare. So is he actually seeing her for real, or is this just a vision? I would tend to think that it's a vision, because when he calls her, she doesn't answer, and when he gets close to her, I think she disappears. So I thought that this was probably the evil that had taken over the painting, playing tricks on Pavel. However, that isn't the case, because turns out the evil is nowhere near as subtle as that. I thought it might do that, like conjure up images, try and confuse them, but no. This paragraph with Pavel's vision of his daughter, there is no explanation for it. It's just there for no reason. Okay, so he has this pain on his back, bearing in mind that he is carrying Lila, the house elf, on his back, and she thinks that the pain is coming from her, and she starts getting down on her knees and begging him for forgiveness, and it's heartbreaking. Like, this poor creature. Like in Harry Potter, there's a whole debate about whether or not it is moral to own house elves. Like, you've got the whole thing with Hermione trying to create this society to free house elves and try and get them to speak up for their freedom. It doesn't work because they don't want to be free. But there's this whole kind of ethical debate and moral debate about that. Okay, that's absolutely not the case in this novel. These creatures, these house elves, so Barry and Lila, they only exist to serve the family of the queen. So, Dragomira, she's got Barry, Pavel's got Lila, and Oksa's gonna have one of her own, presumably, because there are another pair of house elves. I think they live with Leomido, and they have a child, so Oksa's probably gonna get that. Great. They only exist to serve. Like, they are essentially slaves. They don't want anything. It's not like Dobby, who's like, he wants to be free. He wants to be independent. He's different from the other house elves, because guess what? They're all different. They all have different personalities. These creatures don't. They're all the same. And it pains me. Like, they don't even have names. Like, I gave them names, but they don't have any. So she thinks it's her fault. She gets down on her knees, she puts her arms around his waist and starts crying because she hates herself for hurting him even though she didn't. Like, oh, it's horrible. So he tells her that it's not her fault and that he believes it is the ink dragon that is waking up and that wants to give him its powers. And apparently he has his tattoo on his back. So he seems very worried about this. This is something that frightens him. He doesn't want this to happen. Okay. Chapter 16. Oh my god. This scene. Okay. So, whilst I was reading this, it did occur to me that maybe I'm a bit old to kind of get all the magic and subtlety and, I don't know, wonder of this, because this isn't aimed at my age group. This is made for 12-year-olds, and I'm 31. So maybe I'm missing something. So what I did was, I actually own a 12-year-old, quite helpfully. So I read to her some of these chapters. And she wasn't impressed. I'm going to say this. She wasn't impressed. But this bit in particular made her literally roll around laughing. Because that's another thing about this book. There are moments in it that I think are supposed to be funny, but I'm not sure whether they are or they aren't. Like, it's not... The context isn't right. the wording, and because they're all so stupid and like meant to be, are they meant to be stupid? I don't even know. So yeah, it's just confusing. But this bit was one of those. Like, my daughter actually laughed out loud at this. She literally started rolling around. She thought it was so funny. I don't know whether or not it's supposed to be funny. I don't know. So anyway, Pavel finally gets out of the forest and he finds himself in front of a frozen waterfall. And it is so cold that when he like puts his hand up to it, his fingers turn blue. It makes his fingers go blue, and he's amazed by this. And then it actually says this here. Listening to his instinct, he went running into the frozen waterfall whilst uttering a war cry. So my 12-year-old died. I have no idea if this is supposed to be funny or not. I'm going to end it there for this review, because this is turning out to be way longer than I thought it would be. But, like, so he goes running through the waterfall, and then he finds all the others on the other side, and there's this great big scene that goes on for pages and pages about how they're having this moving, emotional reunion. Plichota and Wolf really like writing scenes of emotional departures or emotional reunions. Like, there's a very, very long passages of, oh wow, it's nice to see you again. Oh, it's nice to see you. And oh, great. Oh, we were worried and blah, 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 blah. My question is, what the hell was the waterfall about? None of the other characters got to see this waterfall. Why was it there? What was it doing? Why did Pavel see it and not them? What was its purpose? We never find out. So that's it for the first part of my review of Oksa Pollock. Yeah, the amount of research I did just to write this review is staggering. I never thought, I mean, wow. But yeah, that was part 1. That was chapter 16. This book is 64 chapters long, so I try and do it in about 2 or 3 episodes. I'll see how this goes. But yes, thank you for watching, and I will be back shortly with part 2. I'll see you all then. Bye bye.